No one in the courtroom expected what happened next. The air was calm, routine until the doors swung open, and a wall of towering security guards marched in as if escorting royalty. Whispers rippled across the room, heads lifting, eyebrows raising, a murmur weaving through the benches like a sudden gust of wind. Judge Frank Caprio had seen every kind of entrance, from trembling teenagers to exhausted single parents. But this was new, and he could tell instantly. Something about this case was going to carve its way into the memory of everyone present. The defendant followed behind the bodyguards, small in frame but wrapped in designer clothing. A pale cream hoodie, thick gold chain, shoes so white they reflected the overhead lights. His posture was rigid, his hands pressed together anxiously. His name, according to the docket, was Austin Vale, age 23. A rising social media influencer with millions of followers, known for flashy videos, high-energy vlogs, and a personality that seemed larger than life on screen. But here, in this modest Providence traffic courtroom, he looked anything but larger than life. His charge was simple: speeding in a school zone, 21 miles over the limit. Straightforward, usually a quick case. But the presence of 3 massive bodyguards, flanking him like a presidential escort, made everyone wonder, what on earth is this kid afraid of? Even the clerk paused mid-sentence as Austin approached the stand, and the officer beside him raised an eyebrow with an expression that asked the same question the entire room was thinking. Something was off, deeply off, and nobody knew why. Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair, fingertips touching as he observed the young man. His eyes, soft but probing, took in every detail: the tension in Austin's shoulders, the way he kept tugging his sleeves down over his wrists, the twitch of nervous energy that betrayed something beneath the surface. Caprio had presided over thousands of cases, and he'd long ago learned that the story written on paper was rarely the story written in a person's life. And this young man, there was fear in him. Not arrogance, fear. He spoke with the gentle authority that had become his signature. "Good morning," he said. "Mr. Vale, is it? You brought quite an entourage." His tone wasn't mocking, not even close. It was curious, kind, almost fatherly. But the bodyguards stiffened all the same. A quiet sigh left Caprio internally. This is a courtroom, he thought, not a battlefield. He straightened slightly. "Before we proceed," he added calmly, "may I ask why you felt the need to bring 3 bodyguards with you?" A hush fell over the room. Austin swallowed hard, eyes darting between the judge and the men standing behind him. He finally spoke, his voice far smaller than his online persona ever suggested. "Your Honor, I'm sorry. I didn't know if it was safe." "Safe? From what?" Caprio's brows tightened, but he remained steady. "Safe? Son, this is a municipal court. No harm comes to anyone here. You have my word." Austin nodded shakily, but his breathing didn't calm. His fingers fidgeted harder. He continued, voice trembling. "I know it looks ridiculous. I know everyone's staring. But I've been getting threats. A lot of them. And last month someone followed me to my car after an event. My mom begged me not to go anywhere alone." A few people in the seats leaned forward, their judgment softening. "I'm not used to being out in public without security anymore," Austin said. "I didn't mean any disrespect. I just—" He paused, swallowing thickly. "I didn't want something bad to happen here." Judge Caprio exhaled slowly. A child pretending to be a man, he thought. Fame may make someone visible, but it can also make them very alone. But still, this was highly irregular. Caprio gestured kindly but firmly. "Mr. Vale, your bodyguards cannot remain in the well of the courtroom. This must be a space where people come as equals, without intimidation, without theatrics, without barriers." The bodyguards shifted, preparing to protest, but Caprio raised a hand. "You gentlemen may wait outside. Your client will be perfectly safe in here." The room held its breath. Austin's eyes widened, not in entitlement, but genuine panic. "Your Honor, with respect, please don't make them leave. I won't be able to do this." A murmur passed through the room again, and this was the moment Caprio felt the first tug at his heart. This wasn't fear of punishment. This was fear of being unprotected, exposed, alone. Something deeper was happening here. He softened, but his voice remained steady. "Mr. Vale, you're safe. I promise you." Austin hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. The bodyguard stepped out, and as soon as the doors clicked shut, something changed in the young man. His shoulders slumped. His jaw trembled. He looked small, vulnerable, almost like he was bracing himself for an impact nobody else could see. Caprio spoke gently. "Now, let's talk about your summons. You were stopped for speeding in a school zone. Do you recall the incident?" Austin nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Honor." "Why were you driving so fast?" Austin hesitated. His eyes dropped to the floor. "It wasn't what the officer thought. I wasn't rushing to film something or meet fans or any of that. I was actually trying to get home. I had posted a video earlier that morning. I didn't know it at the time, but someone leaked my address in the comments." A collective gasp swept the courtroom. Austin's voice cracked. I panicked. I started getting these DMs, people saying they were coming over. Some of them knew details about my house that they shouldn't know. My roommates started freaking out. I didn't feel safe. I just drove fast. I wasn't thinking. I just wanted to get away from the house. Caprio watched him closely. "Did you consider calling the police?" Austin's face twisted with embarrassment. "I was scared they wouldn't take me seriously. I know how it sounds, a kid with followers thinking he's in danger. I thought they'd roll their eyes at me." Caprio leaned forward, his voice softening. "Fear doesn't check your subscriber count, son." Austin's mouth twitched at that, half a smile, half a grimace. "And your parents? Did you speak to them?" Austin hesitated again. "My dad passed when I was 12. My mom lives 2 states away. I tried calling her, but she was already asleep. She works nights." There was something raw about the way he said it, as if the absence of a father, even years later, still sat heavy in his chest. Judge Caprio took a quiet breath, letting the silence settle. Moments like these, when a defendant revealed the fragile truth beneath the surface, were where humanity lived. And he could feel, palpably, that Austin was holding back more. He spoke gently. "Mr. Vale, something tells me the speeding ticket isn't the real reason you're afraid. What's really going on?" Austin's eyes darted toward the courtroom doors, toward where the bodyguards had exited before he looked down at his hands again. "I didn't want to talk about this in front of everyone," he whispered. Caprio nodded slowly, speaking in the calmest voice imaginable. "You're not on trial for your life, son. You're here for a speeding violation. But if something is endangering you, if something is affecting your behavior, it's important for me to understand." Austin's throat bobbed with a swallow. His fingers trembled as he reached into the pocket of his hoodie and pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn at the edges from being handled too often. He stared at it for several long seconds before placing it on the bench in front of him. The judge gestured toward the clerk, who brought it up carefully. Caprio unfolded it, and the entire courtroom seemed to freeze. It wasn't a letter. It was a threat. Cut-out magazine letters glued onto a page, spelling out, "You think you're safe? You're not. I'm coming for you. I know where you live." No names, no signature, just jagged menace. Caprio swallowed, his face growing heavy with concern. He had seen fear before, real fear, but not often in someone so young, so outwardly successful, so unsuspecting. He looked up. "Austin, how long have you been receiving these?" The young influencer's voice cracked. 3 months. Gasps spread through the seats. Caprio's eyebrow lifted, his voice dropping to a grave tone. "And you didn't turn this into the police?" Austin shook his head helplessly. "They told me online harassment was hard to trace. They said unless someone had actually shown up or broken in, there wasn't much they could do. I felt stupid, like I was wasting their time." His voice grew smaller. "So I started hiring private security. I started traveling with them everywhere, even to the grocery store, even here." He looked around with exhausted eyes, dark circles beneath them. "I haven't slept well in months. I can't tell what's a real threat and what's someone trying to get attention. I keep pretending online that everything's perfect because that's what my followers expect. But the truth is, I'm scared every time I walk out my front door." He wiped at his eyes quickly. Embarrassed, Judge Caprio's heart tightened. He had grandchildren, not much younger than this boy. He had seen how the digital world changed things, how it brought fame without wisdom, visibility without protection. He spoke softly, almost like a father comforting a frightened child. "You're carrying quite a burden, Mr. Vale." Austin nodded weakly. "But," Caprio continued gently, "fear cannot justify reckless driving in a place where children walk. Do you understand that?" "Yes," Austin whispered. "I do." Voice trembling. "I just want to feel safe, Your Honor." Judge Caprio folded the threatening note and set it down carefully, as if handling something fragile. "How did you end up becoming an influencer?" he asked, steering the conversation somewhere deeper, somewhere human. Austin blinked, surprised. "I didn't expect you to ask that. I need to understand who you are," Caprio said simply. "People don't speed 21 miles over the limit for no reason." Austin took a shaky breath. "It started when I was 16. My dad had just passed, and I needed something. A distraction. A place to put all the noise in my head. So I started making little videos, editing clips, telling jokes, sharing stories. People liked them. They made others smile. They made me feel less alone." His voice grew steadier, warmer. "By 18, it became a career. I started supporting my mom, paid off her debts, helped my little sister with school." A hint of pride flickered across his expression, faint but real. "But somewhere along the way," he continued, "the bigger I got online, the smaller I felt in real life. There were days I'd step outside and wonder if someone was watching me, if someone was following me, if someone hated me enough to do something." The courtroom was silent. Even the officers, usually impassive, seemed affected. Austin looked down again. "I know people think influencers are spoiled, that we make easy money, that we don't have real problems. But fame doesn't make you invincible. It just puts a spotlight on your fears." He sniffed quietly. "And sometimes it makes them grow." Judge Caprio leaned in, voice calm but concerned. "Austin, are you still receiving threats?" "Yes," he whispered. "How often?" "Every day." Caprio inhaled sharply. "And your security team, do they know this?" "They do," he replied. "But they can only protect me physically. They can't stop what's happening online. They can't stop the messages, the stalking accounts, the people sending pictures of my house." His voice quivered. One night, someone taped that note to my front door." He nodded toward the letter on the bench. The courtroom stiffened. Austin closed his eyes, reliving it. "I didn't sleep for 3 days." Judge Caprio felt a weight settle on him. This wasn't just about a young influencer making reckless decisions. This was about a young man drowning beneath the weight of an identity he could no longer control. He watched Austin closely. But then before he could speak, the young man said something that shifted the entire atmosphere. "Your Honor, I think I know who's sending the threats." Gasps broke out again. Caprio's voice dropped low. "Who?" Austin hesitated. "My former best friend." Silence. "Not the curious kind. The stunned kind." Austin continued, each word trembling like a loose wire. "His name is Dylan. We grew up together. When my videos first took off, we worked as a team. He helped film everything. We planned the channel together. But when it started getting bigger, I couldn't split it equally anymore. I was the one on camera. I was the one editing. I was the one doing the work." He paused, shame leaking into his eyes. But he saw it as betrayal. "He said I used him, that I discarded him. He threatened to ruin me." Austin wiped his eyes again. And then the messages started. Anonymous accounts. Photos of me leaving the house. The note. My address leaking. My mom getting calls from blocked numbers. His breath shook. "He hates what my life became. And he blames me for not bringing him with me." Austin's voice cracked fully. "I lost my best friend. And now, I'm scared I might lose more." Judge Caprio sat back, exhaling slowly. In his decades on the bench, he had seen how quickly life could turn on a person, how grief, misunderstanding, resentment, or desperation could warp someone's actions. He thought of his own childhood friends, how precious loyalty had been, how fragile bonds could become if pride or jealousy crept in. He thought of young people today, living under a spotlight they never asked for, navigating dangers older generations never knew. And he thought of the law of its limits, its structure, its purpose. How do you judge someone who is acting out of genuine fear? How do you hold someone accountable without crushing them further under the weight they already carry? Caprio's heart ached for the boy standing before him. A boy pretending to be a man. A boy with millions of followers but nobody to confide in. A boy running from a threat he didn't know how to confront. For a long moment, Judge Caprio didn't speak. The courtroom waited silent, respectful, riveted. Only the hum of the old ceiling fan dared to move the stillness. This young man is carrying more than any 2-3-year-old should, he thought. And yet, he still has responsibilities. He still has choices that affect others. He folded his hands, leaning forward. To him, justice was never just about the law. It was about humanity, about fairness, about recognizing the storms people walked through long before they stepped into his courtroom. A boy like Austin Vale was not a criminal. He was a kid lost in a world that rewarded visibility but offered no shield against the darkness that visibility summoned. And Caprio knew enough about life to recognize that fear, when left unchecked, could push good people into dangerous decisions. He needs guidance, the judge thought. Not punishment, not condemnation, guidance. He cleared his throat gently. "Mr. Vale," Caprio began softly. "Look at me." Austin lifted his eyes, red at the rims, shoulders slumped. "You are not alone. Not here. Not in this city. And certainly not in this courtroom." A tear slipped down the young man's cheek, and he wiped it quickly, embarrassed. "But," Caprio continued, his voice steady but kind, "fear cannot serve as a license to endanger innocent children. You understand that?" "Yes, Your Honor," Austin whispered. "I understand." Caprio nodded, satisfied with the sincerity. "I believe you do." He tapped the threatening note gently. "And I also believe you are in a situation far larger than a traffic violation." Austin nodded again, breathing unevenly. Caprio turned slightly toward the bailiff. "Officer, please retrieve the bodyguards waiting outside." A ripple of surprise passed through the courtroom. A moment later, the three muscular figures re-entered, standing tall, protective, silent. Caprio addressed them directly. "Gentlemen, thank you for your patience. Your employer is safe here. But I'd like to ask all three of you to step forward." They obeyed without hesitation, lining up beside Austin. Caprio's tone shifted, still warm, but firmer. "This young man is under your protection outside this courthouse, but inside these walls. I am responsible for him, and I take that responsibility seriously. He is frightened, he is overwhelmed, and he is making decisions driven by fear rather than judgment." The bodyguards nodded respectfully. He turned to Austin again. "Mr. Vale, I'm going to ask you something important. Something only a man who truly wants to heal can do." Austin swallowed. "What is it?" he whispered. Caprio leaned forward, his voice almost paternal. "Are you willing to stop running?" The word struck like a soft hammer. Running. Yes, that was exactly what he'd been doing. Running from threats, running from guilt, running from the ghost of a broken friendship. Austin's voice cracked. "I don't know how." Caprio nodded, as if expecting the answer. "That's why I'm going to help you." The courtroom collectively inhaled. Austin blinked, stunned. "Help? Me?" "Yes," Caprio said. "But help requires honesty and courage." He gestured toward the threatening letter. "The person you believe is behind all this. Your former friend. Have you considered speaking to the police about him specifically, including any evidence you may have? Any messages he has sent? Any history between the two of you?" Austin looked torn. I didn't want him to get in trouble. We used to be like brothers, And now? Caprio asked gently. Austin's voice dropped to a whisper. Now he wants to destroy me. The judge nodded thoughtfully. You can love someone from your past, he said, but still protect yourself from the person they've become. Austin's chin wobbled again, another tear falling. Caprio continued softly. I've lived a long time, son. Long enough to know that unresolved pain can turn friends into strangers. And strangers into threats. A heavy silence settled. Then Caprio straightened, shifting from mentor to judge. Let's address your case. Austin braced himself. Mr. Vale, Caprio said, you were speeding 21 miles an hour in a school zone. The law is clear on that. Children walk there. Parents cross there. You put them at risk. Austin nodded miserably. I know. I'm sorry. I don't doubt that, Caprio replied. But fear cannot come at the expense of other people's safety. Therefore, the room tensed. I could fine you several $100s. I could assign community service. I could suspend your license. Austin's stomach dropped. But I won't. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Austin froze. I've always believed, Caprio said, that justice must be both fair and humane. And in your case, punishment is not what you need. The judge lifted the threatening note again. What you need is protection, guidance, and a reminder that you are not alone in this struggle. He leaned in. So here is my judgment. The room stilled completely. I am suspending the fine on 2 conditions. Austin's breath caught. Condition 1, Caprio said. You must meet with the Providence Police Cybercrimes Unit within the next 7 days. You will bring every message, every threat, every detail you have regarding this situation. If someone is endangering you, the proper authorities must intervene. Austin nodded quickly, relief and fear mixing. Yes, Your Honor. I will. Condition 2, Caprio continued. You will complete 10 hours of community service, but not as punishment. Rather, as perspective. Austin frowned slightly. Perspective? Caprio nodded. You will speak to a youth group here in Rhode Island about the realities of internet fame. The pressures, the dangers, the misconceptions. These children need to know the truth about the world they idolize. Austin inhaled, surprised. I can do that. I know you can, Caprio said warmly. And who knows, maybe you'll help a young person who feels just as lost as you do. A tear streamed down Austin's cheek. But this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from relief, from gratitude, from being seen, really seen, for the first time in months. Caprio extended a hand, not physically, but emotionally. You are not a criminal, Mr. Vale. You are a young man navigating a complicated world. You made a mistake, but mistakes are not definitions. They are lessons. Austin's shoulders shook with quiet sobs. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you so much, Your Honor. Caprio smiled gently. And one more thing, he added. Austin looked up hopefully. Next time you come to my courtroom. Caprio paused, letting the tension hang for a heartbeat. Leave the bodyguards outside. Laughter rippled warmly through the room. Even Austin let out a broken, relieved chuckle. Yes, Your Honor, he said. I promise. Caprio gave a single nod. Case dismissed. As Austin walked out, the bodyguards fell in step behind him, not as symbols of fear, but as reminders that some battles require support. And though he still carried shadows from his past, his steps seemed lighter, calmer. As if for the first time in a long time, he wasn't running. Judge Caprio watched him leave, his heart heavy but hopeful. He knew the challenges ahead wouldn't disappear overnight. Threats might still come. Fear might still rise. Fame might still distort the fragile line between admiration and obsession. But now, Austin was no longer navigating that darkness alone. And in a world filled with noise, judgment, and chaos, sometimes all a young person needed was a single moment of human understanding to change their path. In that humble Providence courtroom, surrounded by strangers who listened, a scared young man found courage again. And Judge Frank Caprio, seasoned by decades of humanity, proved once more that justice, real justice, is not just about punishment. It's about compassion, perspective, and the belief that people can rise after they fall. Because every person, no matter how famous or frightened, deserves a chance to be seen not for their mistakes, but for their humanity.